We are looking at a question on job costing, and let us see how we respond or answer to questions on job costing. The question reads, Trade Queens Limited produces high quality carpets in this factory. Manufacturing is done to fulfill each customer's specific order, and as such, no finished stock are carried by Trade Queens. On the 60th month end, a single incomplete job X124, was in progress. To that date, Trade Queens had incurred production costs of X124 as follows. So it had these production costs as they were doing this particular job. So if you notice job costing, these will show you the costs that are attributed by a particular job or doing a specific order. Then it continues and says, in the 7th month, Trade Queens won 2 further jobs, job X125 and job X126. Prime costs were as follows. You have the direct materials, you have materials from stores, transfers and the like, and we have to understand how we treat all this, and which will be explained in this very video. A rate of 7 kwacha per hour is applied to direct labor payments, while the production overheads absorption rate is 12 kwacha per direct labor hour. Job X124 and X125 got completed in the 7th month. An addition of 20% of total production cost is made on completion of a job so as to recover distribution, selling and administration costs. The customers were invoiced the following for month 7's completed jobs. So you have the following. Those are the invoices that they were sent at. Okay, this will be the payment towards doing the particular job. Like X1, the invoice that was invoiced for the entire job was a 60,000, and then X125 there was an invoice of 79. So as you understand, an invoice is just like a statement of roughly how much something would cost overall. So as what we're going to do is that we'll budget our actual costs that this project will take, and then we'll come and compare to the invoice and see whether has there been is it short or is it more than what has been invoiced, and we'll analyze from there actually. So that is what we've been taught. Required for each of the jobs, calculate the following total costs for each of the jobs. Let's understand the information. 1. Direct material, direct labor, production overheads. Lastly, B. Calculate the total costs and profit or loss of each job X1 of jobs X124 and job X125. That's where the question ends. So that's why we've been shown the invoice. It will be used for that comparison of whether you've made a profit or a loss at the end of the day after you've determined the production costs and the like from the jobs that have been stated. So let's understand the information and prepare the job statement, job cost cards for each of the jobs. So they've asked us for calculate the direct material, direct labor, production costs for each of the jobs. Let's start with maybe X124 first. When you look at job X124, there's this detail in the intro that has said that job X124 had some direct material costs at the end of month 6 that was amounting to 7220. We cannot forget that, because even as we are falling into month 7, this is part of the costs as we are planning for this job, because it was like, should I say, these are already some costs that are relating to the job. That's why they cannot ignore them. So we'll pick this 7220 plus what they are also incurring further on these jobs. If you can see below here, X124 has appeared again in this other sequence of the materials showing a 6978. So you're going to put the two figures together, the 6978 and the 7220, to find the total material cost of job X124. So in the end, I'll just show you that these would be now the final answers after you have done what I've just instructed there. Secondly, we look at job X125. How do we find the material costs? Well, the details for X125 started just here, where they've shown us that okay, it had some material from stores of 18,994. It also had some material returns to the stores and material transfers. So how are we going to find the cost given all these material cost details? So if you've noticed how they've put it, some figures have been put in brackets. What do they mean? There'll be, these are like deductions. So even like when you're computing the total cost of material, please, you have to respect those which are in brackets. There are signs that would be negative, meaning we would subtract as we put all the material costs together there. So it would be like 18,994 minus 700 plus 860. That's of job X125. Finally, you look at job X126, which equally has the same story. It's 12,221 as in stores. Then it has in brackets 2,170 as retained from stores, which has to be subtracted according to the instruction there. And then material transfers equally, they were negative. So we just respect the signs and we have to subtract. If they're in brackets in accounting, that's a negative. So we'll just subtract. And let me show you now the overall cost for each job following the instruction that I've just mentioned here. Well, these are their ending material costs results after you follow those instructions. So if you remember X124, just saying you add down that one from the month end of over 6 month 6, and this one from month 7, the details that were being given. That's how we got that 14,198. Job X125, 19,154. After following the instructions, just remember those which are in brackets we are subtracting. Yeah, that's what we're doing there. Job X126. We remember that one, it had some positive figures. Again, those in brackets we subtracted and we got that 9191. That's how you treat material, the material cost for each job. Yeah, so that's how you label that. We move on to labor now. Labor costs for each job, because we were told for each of the jobs, we have to do that and ensure that we answer the questions that we have been told. So when you look at labor, they've got labor hours each job, as you can see below. 780 hours for job X124, 2364 for job X125, 1510 for job X126 as the hours. Now, as for looking for a cost, therefore we have to multiply the hours by some cost. So, you know, when you're budgeting for jobs, it's not very difficult. You just take into consideration those costs that you'll be incurring, materials, labor, and once you've done that, then you can plan and see if there'll be some profit calculations at the end of the day. Yeah, so we're just going to get these hours, and do we have an hourly rate somewhere in the question? Go down, they've written something that a rate of 7 kwacha per hour is applied to direct labor payments. Is that instruction clear? So meaning we are going to be multiplying each of those hours by 7, because that is a per hour rate, so it can convert to the amount that we are looking for in kwacha. So let's do that. Just before we switch to the next screen of the calculation, look at X124. There are some details referring to this job X124 specifically, because they've been told us that as of the month end of that's month 6, direct labor costs, there's also a 6076 as well. So even as we multiply the hours times the rate, don't forget to add on the 6076 on job X124 only, because this detail is in reference to X124. The others, they'll just be hours times hourly rate. That's the end. Okay, let's do this. Let's do just that. Job X124 calculation on labor. 24 for labor calculation. It's as follows. We have that 6076 from the other month end plus the 780 hours times 7 kwacha per hour. Total 11,536 as the labor cost for job X124. Let's take note of that. We are doing job X125's labor costs. It's the hours times the cost per hour, which is 16. Okay, 16,000. Let me just punch the other, just to confirm this figure. 16,548 is your labor cost for job X125. Lastly, you would even do the same thing for job X126. Job X126 would be the 7, 1, 5, 10, 10, 5, 70 becomes your cost of this job, labor cost. So that's how you record labor cost. So mind you, how you'll be recording for each job is like you would list the jobs on top here, 124, 125, as you will see in my final solution. Then you would put here direct material, here direct labor, in that order. Then here to be now production, something like that. That would be a systematic approach of answering this question. Next, the question had asked us to now calculate the production costs for each job. So how do we get production costs? They've told us something in the question that while production overhead absorption rate is at 12 kwacha per labor hour. So that production overhead rate of 12 kwacha, let's understand it. It is in reference to production cost. That's why they're even saying a production overhead. An overhead is just a cost. Huh? Yeah, so it's relating to anything that's production costs. As they have just said, it will give us a production cost if we use this rate, the 12 kwacha. So hence we're going to use the 12 kwacha and multiply it where they said per direct labor hour, meaning we're going to use the labor hours that we're just from using up there and find the production costs for each job. So it will be like 12 kwacha times, let's say job 124 has 780 labor hours, and we multiply like that. So just always remember job X124 had some previous information which we should not ignore because it's still in relation to this job. Okay, that is why we are still referring to those figures up here. So it also has some production overheads, this same job X124 of 10,416, meaning we'll come and add it to whatever answer we find after multiplying by the 12 absorption rate plus to the 10,416. So we can do just that on our next screen now. Job X124, these are the calculations for it. 10,416, that's from the month end of month 6, plus this same current month 7, 780 times 12, so that we can get the production cost, because it's always gotten by this rate of 12, so we've been taught, and we are getting a 19,776 as the production cost for job X124. Let's do the next job. So here, when you multiply for the next job, now this is job X125, we are looking at production cost, 2,364 are the hours, times that rate, absorption rate, because it's production now, it's giving us that answer you're seeing here, 28,368. That's what we'll record. Finally, the final job, job X126. Job X126, this is the detail for its production cost. Same story, it had 1,510 hours times the rate 12 kwacha. And that's the figure, 18,120. After all those costs, we have answered the question of the three things that were asked for in part A: direct material costs, direct labor costs, and finally the production cost. So let's just see how best you can present all this work that we have talked about here. Well, this is the final outlook of everything we've been doing according to part A, which asked for those particular costs. Then if you go to the same question now, part B, if you remember what we started with in the intro of the video, if you rewind, we said part B was asking now for the total costs for specifically job X125 and job X124, just these two. That's why you have to follow instructions. Yes, you've done 126, but the question did not ask for job 126 total costs. So total cost will only be calculated for job X124 and job X126. What do they mean by total cost? Just sum up all the costs that you have: material, labor, production costs. Those are the figures you're seeing there. So in short, for job X124, it is the figure we are seeing of 54,612. I hope we're clear there. 54,612. And finally, job X125, what's the cost? 76,884. Well, so those are just the costs, first of all, for this particular question. Okay, we've got now the profit or loss. Now we have to understand that other part they are asked for in part B. Also the profit or loss for, again, job X124 and X125. So let me just take you back to this 20% and that 54,612 you are seeing as the total cost in job X124. By the way, it comprises of this increase of 20%. Now I want to show you how it was put in and how they arrived at the 54,612 there. Well, they said that an addition of 20% of total production cost is made, an addition. So we have to add on a 20% of the production cost. So what we'll do is that we'd have to first add up everything to get your total. Yeah, because they said total production cost, an addition of 20% of your total. So how do you get total production cost? First of all, you add material, add labor, add the production overhead cost that we were just from adding, and then finally when you add up those, they give you the total now. So on that total is what they're saying now, a 20% increase has to be made. So let me show you what they did to arrive at that 54,612 for this particular job. So when I added up job X124, I got this as the total of all those costs relating to job X124 as we are listed in this video. Now they want an increase. So what you can just do is just multiply this by 1.2. Why are we doing this by 1.2? You know, every figure, we just picture it like it's at 100%. Huh? So if you're increasing something, then you can just say we're now moving to 120%, which when converted in decimal for easy computation can be represented by that 1.20 to demonstrate that increase of 20%. And eventually we will land at this figure here, the one you saw as the overall total cost for job X124. Okay, I hope that part is clear. Before we get the profits calculation, it's best to understand how the total cost was gotten. Let's also go to X125 because the question was specific to only X124, X125 in reference to what? Total costs and profit or loss. Only these two jobs. So let's look at X125 now. So just like we treated job X124, this is how we're treating job X125. The total cost after summing up what I had referred to as to get total costs is by summing up the production overhead that was stated, the materials, the labor. As of this job X125, I got that figure times what? I'm increasing it to by 20%. So I just use the same ratio 1.2 according to the same explanation on X124. I'm landing with this as the overall total production cost. Once you get the production costs, you can now compare with what was invoiced to each customer to determine whether you have made a profit or a loss on this job, as you are seeing now in the solution. Let me get back and then we'll interpret from there. So we have found our cost of this job, as you can see, 546,112 specifically for job X124 there. Yeah, we're in the line of X124, as you can see. And then we have determined the profit or loss, which is how much? There's a difference of these two figures. Okay, the difference of these two should give you the profit or loss on this job. So you're subtracting the invoice, which is 60,000 as of job X124, minus the cost, which is 54,612. And here the invoice is more than the total cost of the job. You would say you can make a profit on that because it's like the overall costs, the cost that will be put in amounting to 54,612, and the invoice that came through was 60. So at least that's a profit plus. Okay, what you determined as your company. The other job X125 as 79,000 was the invoice that was given towards the job. This is roughly how much it can cost, but after determining our computations here, we have gotten 76,884 for the job, equally lower than the invoice. So you can say again they've somehow profited on that invoice. So basically this is how you handle questions on job costing, because you're trying to just determine what would be the overall cost of doing this job, and maybe in comparison now with the invoices that do come in. So that's the concept on your job costing principles.